That's what I told Kadaga during the removal of term limit. That you as a speaker, you are a creator of the rules. If you don't respect them, you don't invite me to respect them. And that's what I wanted to put to my friend Anita Mong. First, the rules are very clear. A report on a bill must be debated after 3 days. The reason is that you allow MPs to read and internalize, and then they come to make a decision on behalf of the country when they know what they are doing. So you cannot, because the way this whole process was handled, the MPs themselves who sit on these two committees that were processing the UPDF bill, they told them, first of all, when we are passing the budget, that you stop that work, come and pass the budget. Baka Mugabe, who was chairing the meeting, said, I have adjourned this meeting, signed, meaning I will call you.
Ebyo yebigambo bya Honorable Ssemujju.
That leading MPs is not simple. You want to walk out, others will want to stay in. But also when you're a leader of opposition, you are there on behalf of other party leaders who are not in parliament. Very difficult to make a decision because, and I remember telling the Honorable Senior at the beginning, you have parliament itself, you have your constituents of MPs, but you have the party that has assigned you. So in the end, when the leader of opposition signaled that we walk out, we all walked out. I said those sort of decisions when we are leaders, decisions processed through meetings and decisions that you will take as a leader, and you're asking your colleagues when you signal to do something. The report that colleagues had authored, the minority report, also signed by at least 2 NRM MPs. They are lucky that they are ignorant, they don't read. I'm not even sure that they know what they pass. So they're working out in the wisdom of the leader of opposition was strategic, because you had a decision to make. Do we legitimize this process that has not allowed any consultation to happen? Does our sitting in legitimize that process? What about colleagues who have authored a very good report? So those are the decisions he had to make as a leader, and he said he consulted some people, and he came to today. Police cannot make for me a program. I am going ahead until they grabbed me through me in that van. They used to take dogs and took me home. That's a personal decision. I don't boycott, I don't walk out of parliament. But I work with colleagues. So if they take a decision, I am not going to take a personal decision.
Do you wish you had all stayed?
I have told you, for me, I actually went to parliament ready to argue, because you see, in the office of the, so even the ones who did the minority, they said, okay, you give us what you have signed. Then they read. That's why they also didn't sleep. If you ask Honorable Segona, they spend the whole evening and night and morning responding to a report. So those processes, for me, I wanted us to put them before the speaker. First of all, if you have a report done in those circumstances, our rules are very simple. That report is referred to the clerk of parliament for investigation, because that was forgery. And if the speaker refused, then there will be following no rules.
Your concerns on the floor of parliament?
I have said when you are a leader, I have also taken decisions when I am leading MPs and they rebel. One time I remember I went to Najana Nkumi and I wanted to suspend Gilbert Orange. Because as a leader, he said, we support this. He said, no, we don't support it. Very difficult. So, I mean, if you want to work as a group, you must accept that sometimes you will not win. That's why me, who doesn't want to walk out, who doesn't want to boycott, when the signal was that move out, I said, okay, we'll move out, and then I will go and present my issues in a subsequent meeting.
Well, thank you very much. We'll join.
Ebyo yebigambo bya Honorable Ssemujju. Honorable oyo ye musajja asinze okola mu district ye yonna gy'abadde. Era nga tukyagenda mu maaso mu kunsonga yemu eyo. Abantu bagamba nti ekyo ekintu kyabadde kibi nnyo. wadde kikyamu era balina okuvaayo betondere eggwanga era betondere n'abalonzi baabwe abaabalonda nga bagamba nti bandisigaddewo ne bateesa ng'ababaka gwe bateekeddwa okutula ne bakolaki ne bateesa gw'oyinza okugamba nti bakoze kikyamu nnyo lwaki bafulumye naye tulabyeko n'ababaka abamu twalabyeko ababaka babadde basatu aba opposition abasigaddemu mu palamenti naye kati woba ogamba nti bano ababaka babadde bakyamu nnyo okufulumya mu palamenti bandisigaddemu kati twabaddeyo n'abasatu abalala abasigaddeyo mu palamenti nga mwe muli ne Honorable Okena owa UPC ye yasigaddeyo of course naye tumubala nga opposition ye yasigaddeyo mu palamenti naye bwe basigaddeyo abasatu yes kati bateeseza bo tebafulumye naye bakyusizza ki ku nsonga eyo era tusuubira nabwe kityo kiri nti n'abaana ababaka abalala ne bwe bandisigaddeyo tebandisobodde kuba nti bakyusa kubanga palamenti etambulira ku numbers nti abawakanya etteeka bwe baba nga bali 100 nga abalikiriza bali 100 era bagenda nabali 100 of course fena tumanyi bulungi nti NRM yesinga ababaka obungi mu parliament kati nga bana ababaka abalala tebasobola kusigala mu parliament nti bakoleki bawulirize etteeka baligane tebasobola digana kubanga already waliwo ekikumi ekyayita naye katuwulire Honorable Okena owa UPC kiki kyayogera ku nsonga eno.
I wanted to be on record because I had written to the Minister of Justice who oversees EC as far as budgeting is concerned. I had written to the Minister asking for a meeting on the authorization of 14A of the Political Parties Organization Act, which effectively meant that in the election year such as this one, we're supposed to share the money from government equally. So that was what was on my docket. So I went on the floor and I gave my position, and if we're going to have this issue of walkouts, there needs to be consultation because we're more than one party. As UPC, we had our issues, and I put my issues as far as I'm concerned on the political parties and the chair of NRM for Northern. In 2011, I stood against Orech Jogo. 2016, Awich Pola. 2021, Onyango. Every election NRM have fielded. That has not prevented me from engaging with other political parties on the auspices of IPOD. So you need to separate the two issues. There's no marriage which restricts anything. And if it was so, I would have told the members, this is what you can do, this is what you cannot do. I have never told a UPC member you cannot stand in any election against NRM.
Did the walkout make any statement on the part of the opposition?
Mine was to put the issues of the Political Parties and Organization Act, because I had written on the 2nd of April for a meeting with the EC, I had written to all leaders of political parties of IPOD. The person who was originally on the order paper was not the one who presented on the floor of Parliament. Then 6 leave on the 13th. On the 14th, leave is granted, certificate of financial implication is given.
You're talking about Honorable Nakut?
Yes, a draft bill is presented on the floor of Parliament. I have been on the summit. Nobody consulted me. And I contacted my colleagues. None of them are consulted.
Ebyo bibadde ebigambo by'omubaka Akena owa UPC. Yes, naye tumumanyi ng'omubaka so nti osobola okuwulira ebigambo by'omubaka byayogera n'omanya nti oyo okusinziira nga bw'ayogera ayinza okuba yali kubamu abalidde y'ekikumi oba oyo ali ku mazima n'obwenkanya. Weewaawo mu bufuve bumu obwo tugenda ate kuwulira ku babaka ab'enjawulo. Tukyalina ababaka bangi be tugenda okuwulirako buli omu atutemeretemere ensonga y'ekintu kino anenya bano abafulumye oba kubanga etteeka lyo lyamaze ofuluma naye kati tukyatunuulira ku bano abanenya ba honorable nti bakoze kikyamufuluma. Weewaawo tulinayo omubaka ndoza wa NRM bamuyita Honorable Dombo yaliko mubaka naye era tukyasobola okumuyita omubaka era still katumuyite Honorable Dombo agamba nti Honorable Ssenyonyi yakola kikyamu nnyo kubanga tubadde ku mawulire nga tulaba ebintu nga bibadde bitambula mu parliament nga Honorable Joel Ssenyonyi ye leader of opposition ye leader wa NUP nti ye yalagira ababaka okufuluma era ndooza yatowa order ababaka ba opposition okuba nti bafuluma mu parliament. Kati buli mubaka yenna avaayo wa NRM anenya asingira ddala kunenyani Honorable Jolo Ssenyonyi nti ekyo kyeyakola kyali kikyamu nnyo okuba nti alagira aba opposition okufuluma mu parliament nga etteeka ligenda mu maaso nti bandisigaddewo omuntu oyinza okumuwulira bw'ayogera n'omanya nti kakati n'okusinza ne bw'ayogera ekyo ateekeddwa ekyogera kubanga bamwokyezaayo naye kati byonna tugenda maaso okuba nti tubiwulira. Katuwulire ate nate Honorable Dombo kiki kyayogera ku mubaka Ssemujju oba kiki kyayogera ku nsonga eno kubanga ye ayogera nga anenya nikyabadde kikyamu naye ate still nawe okyasobola otuwa ku ndowoozayo mu comment section nti ekyababaka kye bakoze kyabadde kikyamu oba kyabadde kituufu. Katuwulire ku Honorable Dombo biki byayogera ku nsonga eno.
Parliament, they are members of parliament and they have regulations, and they also determine the business of the house depending either the consultation of the business committee or the decision of the speaker given the business that they have to deal with.
Yeah, but as a seasoned former legislator.
No, sometimes they even sit in cabinet. It's not an outsider.
I want to tell you that I've been to parliament and we have processed a bill in one day. Tabled, committee, and handled it. We have also handled a bill where the whole house sits as the committee of the house, and we have passed the bill in one day. So, depending on the IO, because the ability to talk to one another, there has been a frictious relationship between the current leader of the opposition and the team that he heads and the leadership of the house. Under normal circumstances, Honorable Ssemujju knows. When Honorable Ssemujju was there, and you have Honorable Genga Latigo. Ordinarily, before the matter even comes before the house, the two leaders from there across the aisle ordinarily ought to meet to talk. Other which Honorable Ssemujju tells you that the members of the committee had been in Munyonyo. Yesterday on one of the media houses, Honorable Segona was confessing on the number of amendments that he had moved at committee stage. So the members of the National Unity Platform had been in the committee stage in the hotel, and they had participated in the debate throughout. So why do you participate in the committee, especially when there are senior people like Honorable Ssemujju, from whom he can seek some knowledge on how things should be done? You know, this bill, which had been considered, is now an act of parliament. And the future Hansard readers will miss a lot of input. When you go to the 1960s on the Hansard and find out during Obote's time how the people were debating the laws, even when they did not succeed in putting forward or having the legislation that they would have desired, you will see the debates, the underlying circumstances, and the reservations that were done.
We don't have military raiding parliament, pick MPs like it has happened twice.
No, there was no military picking anybody yesterday, because we're talking about yesterday.
They have been picked twice by SFC.
No, they have, but yesterday everybody was picked, and you saw.
There was a complaint earlier.
You saw members of the opposition.
It was besieged.
You saw
There
members.
were drones all over.
You saw members of the opposition complaining. They have been in the media complaining that they came prepared. Honorable Segura jumped from the border from the hotel in order to beat the jam so that he can come and put his case. So, for us who are outside, we miss an opportunity to hear what the other side wanted to say, but this calls for soul-searching of the leaders of either sides of the aisle, because Parliament is a talking place. People go there to talk. On the issues which you are raising about the military, they have gone before the courts of law and they have made proclamations on them. I believe from the mistakes or challenges that we have had in the past, we should be able to have better organized discussions within the Parliament and having a better law made. But now, we have a law which has been made, it has passed, in accordance with the regulations of Parliament, working out by the other side notwithstanding, the law has been passed. Now we have a responsibility to tell the people of Uganda and teach them what the law provides for and what the challenges could be.
Yeah, before we get into the implications of the past bills, Kanso Katana, as one of the top leaders in the National Unity Platform, did you ever sanction the walkout of MPs from the headquarters?
Well, the starting point is that there was the Honorable Ssemujju has mentioned here that he learned from the leader of opposition that he consulted some people. So the people he consulted must have constituted the party leadership, but also colleagues in parliament, because this was not business of National Unity Platform strictly, but business of the opposition.
Yeah, but MPs were unaware.
They had an option of staying and leaving. By leaving, they exercised their sense of judgment, and it was very clear that those who walked out agreed with the walking out. Those who didn't agree stayed, and nobody touched them for not walking out. So certainly, by actions, there is an indication of consensus. But for me, I think that is not the most important thing. The most important thing is that what is the context? The context is that most times the NRM wants to operate by impressions. That when they are doing their shabby things, they co-opt people from the other the political organizations to be part of the process. And that is very dangerous, because it gives wrong signals to the population if these impressions are not genuine. And I think that partly explains, and the leader of opposition was very clear. He mentioned that they did not want to accompany the NRM legislators on their mischievous agenda. And so that has been explained, I believe, thoroughly, that informed the decision to walk out. And I think it has been confirmed on this show that he has been quoted as having informed the Honorable Assembly that there were consultations. But most importantly is to say that this entire process was illegitimate. Illegitimate in a sense that, one, it intended to reenact what was found to be inappropriate by both the Constitutional Court and the Supreme Court, particularly the trial of civilians in the courts martial. Number two, the process which has been elaborately talked about fell short of meeting the standards. You see, the rules of procedure may set the minimum, but even by setting the minimum, it is not in any way taking away basic principles that guide legislation. For example, the laws that are enacted should be a reflection of the aspirations of the people. While you are concerned, that's why normally your consultations are not restricted to members of parliament who will have a chance to debate the proposals. That's why they invite people. For example, I have learned through media coverage and what have you that there was an invitation extended to experts at 9 p.m. inviting them to appear at 9 a.m. And this is a technical matter. People have to prepare to come and represent meaningful submissions. The invitation to Law Society was also on short notice, and you ask yourself that what was the emergency? Because all this time has been there, but the intention was to mischievously circumvent the findings of the Supreme Court, reintroduce this, not because even the members of parliament felt it was important, but because they were also under pressure. Pressure from the chairman of NRM, because on record after the ruling of the Supreme Court, he made his
He applauded the legislators. Yes.
After the ruling of the Supreme Court, he called out the judiciary for making the findings they did make, and so did the Chief of Defense Forces. And when the legislators now, and I think the submission about people being summoned for the caucus meeting, having rejected a number of provisions, being summoned in itself points to the pressure they were under from the chairman of NRM. And so it is very clear that this is an illegitimate law. It offends the constitution, it offends the international standards and practice, and it is not intended in any way to achieve the ends of justice, but serve the wishes of an individual.
To what extent would you say that Parliament was arm-twisted and the opposition lost?
I think when we are looking at a law like this one, it is not about I don't think the people that lost in passing of this law is the opposition. It is the people of Uganda, because this law is not only going to affect the opposition.
We are not talking about the UPDF bill alone. We're looking at the two.
Yeah, but we must be systematic.
Okay.
We cannot just, we must be systematic. But even if you chose to look at both, they are both laws that you would say are of high public interest. So when you are focusing, for example, still on the amendment to the UPDF Act, you realize that the people who will be affected, of course, the primary target are members of the opposition, because the courts martial have largely been used as an instrument of whipping opposition into line. Whoever has disagreed with the establishment, both in the army and outside the army, has faced the general court martial. And the list is long. The list is long. Dr. Besige has been there, even recently has been there. The Honorable Chagulanyi has been there. Ssemujju, when he disagreed with the establishment, was taken there. Tumukunde, when he disagreed with the establishment, was taken there. So it is an instrument of operation. It is an instrument that the regime uses to whip those with dissenting views in line. But in fact, the Supreme Court had the occasion to also indicate that this court or these courts should not only be fair to the civilians, but should be fair to the armed officers as well. And I can tell you that many of them, if you have been to that court, you realize they have also, this court is as repressive to them as it is to the civilians. But for tonight's purposes, I want to specifically largely focus on the trial of civilians in the courts martial. First of all, both the Constitutional Court and the Supreme Court had the occasion to indicate that this is unlawful.
Will you allow me to look at the implications a little later?
Okay.
Thank you. Dr. Sirwambala, if we were to be specific on the political parties and organizations amendment, how much win has IPOD registered, given that there's been this headache of big parties like the National Unity Platform simply staying away from you?
Thank you very much, Simon. For starters, I wouldn't like to say that there is a specific winner and all loser in this, because when I come to Parliament, we sanctioned a study, and the study was cross-party, all parties that had come to Parliament, trying to establish from them what they thought. I have a report here on the future of IPOD. All of them, including National Unity Platform, which eventually opted not to join, said that the idea of IPOD was good. The reasons or the challenges were there, and I ought to say that they actually have legitimate reasons.
But on the contrary, the letter that was written by the party's Secretary General indicated that iPod had become a platform for heads of parties to enjoy tea and take photos.
Well,
you are in receipt of that letter?
Yes, correct. But for me, that is an opinion. It's not a statement of facts.
No, that's the party stance.
Yes, but I mean, it doesn't mean that because it's a stand of the party, then it construes to be a statement of fact. It's an opinion. The fact is to the contrary. It's not that, because I can tell you, for instance, National Unity Platform, part of the 4-point-something billion they have over the course. It is the Honorable General Kenas who negotiated that money in the space of iPod. So I think to say that
who negotiated?
No,
we're negotiating with who?
The members of iPod. The members of iPod. For instance, what I'm saying here is that yes. Can I put flesh to that?
Yes.
So what I'm saying,
I can put clarity there.
he can put clarity, exactly. So what I'm saying is that political parties were getting 10 billion across the year. And Honorable Akena and the other members of Summit were in agreement that actually, of course, with changes, and the demands of the time, that money was small. And you need to bear in mind, like Honorable Akena has been saying, that funding, when you look at Section 14A, it is largely distributed specifically under Clause 1, which is numerical strength. So the others are disregarded, including what I think is his biggest issue during the election year, completely disregarded. But I mean, through that discussion, which actually started from council, that I think there was need to engage in advocacy to have this money increased. And of course, the president, who is the Minister of Finance, engagements were done, and there was that agreement.
To 35 billion.
To 35 billion. So you cannot therefore say that the platform has largely been used as a moment of taking pictures and a cup of tea. By the way, I need to remind you that even if we were to look at it as that, there are leaders of political parties who said that, look, the NRM, when it comes to issues of engaging with us, looks askance. Can you organize a meeting as a gesture of goodwill that General Museveni comes? And if he comes, that will be a beginning point of engagement. Because you need to know that trust building is not something that is born overnight. It's something that takes time. They asked for that. We engaged. They didn't show up. Now, and again, we need to know. Again, looking at it, even from the process in Parliament of the leader of opposition opting, to take the members out. From my perspective, when you look at all these happenings, a political party can choose to strategically position itself at a certain point, the critical path of legislation, and say, we are going to engage up to this level, disengage and engage. So the National Unity Platform, for instance, through as the leaders of opposition, like you've said, they engaged in as far as to a certain level, briefly, like Honorable Segona coming with the others, putting up that, but then they probably thought that going ahead would not bear any results, so they disengaged. And I think it is right. It is civic.
Do they still pick the money?
Well, that money is not issued by iPod. It is through the Electoral Commission. And
negotiated by iPod?
Yes, that fact remains. It's on record.
It's a creation of the law.
It's a creation of the law through.
It's not a resolution of iPod.
Yeah, but you see, there are people who are watching. First of all, iPod was introduced here, I think, by two parties, mainly the Netherlands Institute for Democracy, who had helped Ghana to democratize. So the main objective of iPod was to facilitate democracy in Uganda, and in their mind and wisdom, they thought that you need to get the ruling party and others to agree on some basic principles. And for nearly now 15 years, I think the only time that there was a semblance of agreement was around 2014, 2015. The members in IPOD agreed on some reforms, electoral and administrative, and even drafted bills together. Brought those bills in Parliament that were received by the Deputy Speaker then, Jacob Oranya. But eventually, Amamamba was first as NRM Secretary General dismissed IPOD as an NGO, disowned the bills. Then Oranya and others said they were time barred and they were never processed.
So the law is here now.
The decision,
so IPOD can no longer be dissed.
I was in the FDC. We evaluated our participation at that time and said, you guys, this is the main objective. The main objective has been thrown through the window. We are now negotiating how much money we should get. And that's what Museveni likes. As soon as the colleagues, the president of UPC and the DP and the GMA went to Munyonyo, and they said we want funding because Museveni want to patronize everybody. They said funding, oh, that one is okay. Now they moved money from 10 to 35.
Don't you find it absurd that you've reduced IPOD to money, just sharing money?
I'm telling you, because by the time the FDC disintegrated, we had also exited. Because we said the main objective, which was democratization, had not been met. Even when we authored bills together for electoral reforms, NRM disowned them and Parliament never processed them.
I want to get back to Dr. Serambala.
Yes.
Maybe that's very important. The general perception from the opposition about IPOD is about negotiating for money and other perks.
I would also like to comment on this issue.
Yeah, you see, Simon,
You'll come.
when you talk of dialogue, you are talking about dialogue, you're talking about negotiation, you're talking about mediation. Those are the peaceful approaches, or what they call alternative dispute resolution mechanisms. Now, when you have dialogue, a political party comes with what we call positions, interests, and needs. And I think each party getting into the room comes with those three. Just to correct Honorable Ssemujju, in IPOD, the agenda in IPOD, or what is discussed, is a product of consensus. The party, FDC, I think one of the things they so much wanted to have on the agenda every other time was, Honorable Kena can bear witness to me, was transition. And I think that is one of the issues that eventually led to the stalemate, because the issue of transition, political parties needed to agree on it so that it finds its way to the agenda of council and summit. But it would be pushed by FDC, and probably the other members were not, did not find it as pressing at the time. That's the first thing. Secondly, I think there are also lots of misnomers or wrong perceptions about IPOD. And Honorable Ssemujju, I think, is one of the propagators. I will give you a little bit of history.
Of misinformation.
Of misinformation.
No.
No. Honorable Ssemujju, I will give you a little bit of information. So IPOD gets formed in 2009, 4 years after the return to multipartyism in Uganda. Now, government of Uganda looked around. There are countries like Ghana, which he has mentioned correctly, that had made a little bit of traction in terms of cross-party engagement. And so, government of Uganda goes and speaks, because the Dutch had been working in South Africa, had been working in Ghana, had been working in Kenya. So they say, can you also help us? Because the history of this country had been such that political parties looked at each other as, you know, competitors who needed to survive by, you know, hanging by the throat. So they came and started that engagement. And so eventually they come to, you know. But the thing is, if you look at
what you have said is not true. You came in late.
No.
That iPod, you need to speak to Wafula. They are the ones who visited Ghana and asked the iPod, I mean the Netherlands Institute of Democracy that was operating in Ghana to come to Uganda. It was never invited by government.
Honorable Ssemujju, what I'm saying is a stated fact.
What you are saying is a lie.
On history.
I am telling you they visited Ghana,
on record,
found them working there and then invited it here.
On record, that is what is there. So I don't know, I don't have the record of Honorable Ssemujju. It could be somewhere in the docket.
We might need to take up the front line as we make sense of the two pieces of legislation. They are already out. We can only now discuss the implementation and the implications. Honorable Jim Akena, do you find it sensible that parties should be compelled to sit and dialogue by conscription?
Once you compel, you have killed iPod. iPod was not, or how iPod works, it cannot work on when one is compelled. You can only handle a dialogue where somebody is willing to come into that dialogue and address matters in that context. So I am totally against this issue of compelling or trying to weaponize the concept of dialogue and putting it in the law as it is. And that is why I was strong on the floor, and I've been strong. I am against what was done. It was
but they're dangling that carrot of money. You don't come, you don't take the money.
You see, when the concept, as Dr. Lawrence here raised this, the concept which put in this issue of increased funding came under the chairmanship of UPC. Now, in iPod, you can only pass something which is mutually beneficial because each party effectively has a veto. Effectively, each party has a veto. So there's nothing which you can pass through which you can use to pin another party. So the context of iPod, you cannot use iPod to pin NRM, you cannot use iPod to pin NU. It cannot work. Now this, what they've weaponized is trying to put somebody in the dock. It cannot work under the auspices of iPod because effectively each of us have a veto, including the memorandum which is currently existing, which at every parliament we negotiate the memorandum. That's the first order of business, and that's what you operate on. Under that memorandum, there is no way you can compel. And that's why I had an issue of people who are bringing this amendment don't understand how iPod works, and they brought an amendment which is not executionable. It will never work under iPod. Now, where you bring this issue? Where you bring this issue funding?
This politically, or
no,
she was under the influence of
somebody is pushing her, right? Because she didn't have the facts. And I even wonder how the iPod Secretariat got involved in something where we were not consulted. And I mentioned on the floor, I have been a member of the iPod Summit. I was not consulted as far as this bill is concerned. Now, the figures and the concept behind it is in line with what we had agreed in 2020, but was not implemented by NRM. NRM actually rejected it because I presented it to the committee headed by Oboth. I presented that exact issue to the committee. And they said, no, we handle it administrative and so on. But the whole issue was, they wanted 70% of 35 instead of 75, whatever percentage what they hold of 25 million. So 25 billion. So it was the greed which killed that concept. But we remain engaged. Now, on the issue of how we came up with the issue of funding, under the UPC chairmanship, you first have to pass your issue through the council. Now, the council issue which I raised was the operations of political parties. My issue was we need strong, viable political parties in case of anything. And if we're able to talk, if there's a crisis, a major crisis in Uganda, and parties are able to talk, we're able to galvanize and keep the unity of the country going forward. My fear was, and I'll put it here on air, if we wake up tomorrow and the chairman of NRM has not woken up, what's going to happen? Because I'll tell you honestly, NRM is not a party per se. NRM NRM is not a party per se.
We wake him up.
But if he's sleeping permanently, who's going to wake him up? We're all going to go that way. We're all going to go. Now, do we have systems in place? Other parties, are we able to talk on critical national issues? That was what I pushed there.
Absolutely.
That's what I pushed. Now we agreed there. But what has happened of late, NRM have betrayed everything which we have built. Everything. What they have done to weaponize iPod, to weaponize this avenue where you have safety valves, they have killed the spirit of iPod.
So, in a sense, the boycott by MOOP is justified because they feel iPod has since become just a joke.
There are issues, and following from Honorable Ssemujju here, there are issues where we needed genuine electoral reforms in order to strengthen democracy. But iPod platform, you cannot pin NRM, you cannot pin any party in iPod. So if you're following that issue, it's not iPod, that's not the avenue which you do. iPod, you will only deal with issues of mutual interest. So it's a round table of issues of mutual interest. So what we're able to pass through, in my term, I looked at what could pass through. We went through the council. Went through the council. When it passed, that's how we got to the summit. I will tell you that FDC, when they were in the chair, the issue which they pushed, and they pushed government to the wall, was an issue of POMA. And they really squeezed government until government got to a position where they had to try to deal with this issue. But the roots of POMA are even not, you need to go further back on the objectives, original objectives of the NRA revolution. And there, before I leave that point, there it is specifically put that only the NRM should operate in Uganda. That's the root of POMA. That is where it is. Now, those are issues which we still need to address. But what, for me, as far as iPod is concerned, is an avenue where we can discuss and we can deal with issues.
The spirit of iPod has since been eroded by the NRA.
True.
And what remains in iPod is money.
In this town,
no money in
the issue of the money,
there's no money.
the issue of the money, what has been brought of late defeats what we worked for. I'm the one, as Dr. Ron said, I started this issue, we got the principles, it got the flesh and the DP, but I'm the one who's shouting loudest because I have genuine concern and disagreement on what was done. It is not iPod.
So on the money, on issues of reforms.
No.
Yeah, I think we also need to give this context. I was in Parliament as a journalist when the public funding, I don't even want to call it government, public funding of parties was discussed. In the law, there are two clauses or two sections. The law which is, first, you're not allowed to receive money from what was being described as hostile countries. And in each election, the government is supposed to publish a list of hostile countries. I think the last time they published was on Rwanda. You're not supposed to receive money from hostile countries, but also the funding from outside the country is restricted to, I don't remember which currency.
200,000 currency.
So those who were in the Committee on Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, that time chaired either by Wacha and Ogalo and Medical and others, is it now that you have restricted the money from outside, you are not allowing some of the neighbors? They say these are public institutions that we must build using public funding. That was the whole idea. It had nothing to do with the dialogue, whether you dialogue or not, because you made dialogue and end up in government. And end in government when you are not ready to govern. So dialogue doesn't prepare parties. It actually just generating some consensus. You may get a party that has refused to dialogue with another and ends up in government with no knowledge, with no experience.
Council Benjamin Katana, the law is now dangling money as the carrot for you to belong to iPod. You either attend or you miss the money.
Okay, there are two things. Membership, participation.
Yes.
I think
someone calls a meeting and you don't come, no money.
No money.
Yes.
I think
Can you resist the money?
I think the most important point to make is that when you bring an amendment or any legislation relating to governance, the intention ideally should be to deepen democracy, not to stifle democracy. And when you look at the amendment in question, the intention clearly is not to deepen democracy in the country, but to stifle it. But number two, when you look at this amendment, you see two things. One is ignorance, because when you look at part, the ones that conceived the idea, because you are talking about issues like accountability, you are talking about issues like tolerance, you are talking about issues like code of conduct for political parties, but these are already taken care of through the National Consultative Forum. In any case, the ideas that are being now fronted as the basis for conscripting people into IPOD are taken care of under the National Consultative Forum, which all the parties in Uganda are party to. I am currently privileged to serve as the vice chairperson representing my party, and that should help to clearly paint the picture to the population that, contrary to the misinformation and propaganda that has been propagated, that we are not interested in engagement, that we are already engaging. The chairman of the National Consultative Forum is from the NRM. The vice chairperson is from NUP. We have members from UPC, from DP, from FDC, and all the parties. And so it is not true that the opposition parties are not interested in engagement. Number three is what I mentioned earlier, that the NRM is interested in creating impressions, a facade, that we are tolerating opposition, we are engaging, while it continues to abduct and torture the supporters of the opposition, disrupt their activities, and don't allow them to do what they are supposed to do. And now there's another dimension to that we have people leading the parliament who have a bone to pick with NUP, and they think they can use the institution of parliament to cripple NUP because they think that our existence is on account of the money that we receive from the National Treasury. This money is not from IPOD. This is a contribution from the taxpayers of Uganda to the political parties. And we are entitled to it on account of the law, not on account of the wishes of any individual, because nobody has sold anything among the people who claim this money, not Dombo, not Museveni, not Among. Nobody has sold personal property to support political parties.
And now the law says,
Uganda who pay taxes.
Now the law says for you to access this money, you must be part of IPOD.
That's a discussion the party will have. Whether because the party, first of all, now IPOD is under the National Consultative Forum in the amendment. We are already part of the National Consultative Forum. I've just informed you that I'm the vice chairperson of the National Consultative Forum. Now IPOD is a department within a body that we are a party to. Previously, IPOD was an NGO, like the senior council Mama Mbaba.
But I think it leaves you now with no option but to be conscripted if you want to call it.
No, what is important is not whether we have an option or not. What is important is whether this law adds any value in deepening the democracy in this country or not. And I've given you my opinion that I think in effect it stifles democracy. It doesn't deepen it.
Okay.
But
I will reject the money.
That is not my decision to make.
Do you feel?
But number two is that this is money that political parties are entitled to by virtue of law. So it is not a favor. It is an entitlement by virtue of law. So it's not a matter of rejecting
the new condition prescribes that for you to access this money, you have to sit and dialogue with the NRM and other forces.
I have told you that if you have read the law, and those who have read the law, IPOD is now a department within National Consultative Forum. We are members of National Consultative Forum, fully involved and participating in the National Consultative Forum, even part of the leadership. So you cannot be...
There is a point of information from Dr. Suram.
Yeah, thank you. When I read the new the amendment, it says that there will be two organs of the National Consultative Forum. One is the Forum for Political Parties Represented in Parliament, which will be called IPOD, and another for non-parliamentary political parties. So I think by default, correct me, Council, if I misinterpreted it. By default, it means that for a political party in Parliament, you can only be under NCF through the organ of IPOD.
No.
I think that's what it means.
The principle is NCF. IPOD is an organ.
Okay.
So an organ cannot be bigger than the bigger.
No, but you can't be NCF when you don't belong to IPOD.
No,
I think
under the constitution and even the relevant laws.
I don't think we are splitting hairs here.
No.
What you see,
All registered
parties
political parties
are under MCF.
Yes.
yeah, but you see,
By law.
all you need to understand, what was the motivation? The motivation is that if Museveni calls a meeting, or the Honorable Akena as the leader of UPC in Munyonyo, and Museveni is attending, and you don't attend, you will not get the money. That's why they were very specific. Membership and participation. The idea was to deny money.
Honorable Dombo, do you celebrate the moment that you've now called them?
Barakabwa, I want first of all to congratulate the FDC and the UPC and the National Unity Platform and the other parties that have participated and also had the opportunity to lead the IPOD. Because like you have heard, if you gave an opportunity to the executive person of the IPOD, he would have enumerated the number of achievements, that IPOD has done. But deciphering just from what you have observed here, it just demonstrates to you that there is a lot of mileage that the political parties and the individuals in Uganda, the politicians, needed to do in order to find consensus in talking about the issues that affect the people. We have challenges in areas of governance. We have challenges in areas of agenda. Which agenda should we get into? We have challenges in the issue of giving capacity to the parties. That is how funding became an issue, because ordinarily before these funds were allowed to the political parties, some people would have looked at NRM because it was in government and were also receiving substantial amount of money from the members of the NRM as their contribution to the party, because of our numbers that we had. And it became a good negotiating point to say, how do you give capacity to the members in order to grow democracy? That consensus for the parties to agree and convince Parliament to pass a law, that is something that was very productive and very helpful. Now the question is, how can you want to belong? How can you want to benefit from the effort of what others have done when you cherry pick on areas only where there is money? Because by common sense, this is what has been happening. The National Unity Platform, just a moment. No, you will correct when you have a problem.
It did not come as a result of discussions in IPOD. IPOD only discussed increment.
You see, the members of the political parties, you see, it is the individual parties which constitute the members within Parliament. And the level of funding, when he went to President Museveni, he came up with some important issues. Can we fund our religious institutions? This is something which President Museveni came up and made the proposition in our smaller meetings of the caucuses of NRM. He said whenever he goes to the churches, he has discovered that the collections that the Christians or the faithfuls, those respective faith, whatever they contribute is not enough to sustain the costs that they go through. The second one was, how can we run a democracy and we allow political parties to raise money from outside? What if they get money from the hostile sources?
So is he well-meaning in funding this part?
Absolutely. For religious institutions, you have seen what he has been doing, making contributions to Nabongo, making contributions to the Islamic faith, or whichever faith.
Or it's about compromise.
Whenever it's not compromise, it's contribution, a good gesture. And that's why you see that when the opposition tried to attack it, and they received demonstration from the other side, they refrained from it. Now on political parties, it was a good gesture, and it's something that must not be condemned. But it becomes bad practice for you to cherry pick when you're an organization, to say you're only going to participate in collecting the money which has come up without participating.
But do you find it feasible that you should coerce people to talk?
You know, talking and dialoguing, it can be incentivized. And incentive can be through two directions. Basically, it can be through carrot, or can be through stick. All those can be incentives, depending on how the other side sees it. Because if you want to participate and pick the money and you benefit from it, why can't you be compelled to be part of the group that participates?
You seem to portray NUP as being very dishonest, that they pick money that is ostensibly meant for dialoguing and growing democracy.
Just trivializing the discussion, and you're helping him on that course.
No, not trivializing, but that's what has been happening. Because yesterday you listened to your president when he was addressing the members who were...
No, was the law to fund political parties a creation of discussions in IPOD?
It was a creation of the members of the political party.
No, it preceded the IPOD discussions.
You were in Parliament, Dom. The idea was that these are public institutions. We have restricted foreign funding. We should fund them because one of them ultimately will be empowered tomorrow. Don't we were in Parliament when this law was passed.
But that's what I've told you. That when we
it had nothing to do with that.
When we discussed the
Parliament, not with IPOD.
No, what's now has become a property of IPOD. The increment.
It is not a property of IPOD in any way.
When the increment was done, how was
it? It was done in Parliament.
Honorable Ssemujju.
No.
Honorable Ssemujju.
Just a moment. Honorable Akena has just told you that he was in the chair when an observation was made, when he was in the chair of the IPOD, that there is a need to give bigger capacity to
beat them and abandon them. The MPs who made the law, and I've been telling them, I want to say something I've said many times, that Museveni is like a lion. When he's hungry, he will feed on anything in his environment. These NRM MPs think that the UPDF Act will not affect them. It will affect them. It's just a matter of time. When Lieutenant General Erueru was commanding the invasion on the Omusinga Ruwiri in Kasese Palace, Museveni was very happy. He promoted him from Major General to Lieutenant General and appointed him Deputy CDF. He disagreed with his son. The son said his New Year resolution included the dealing with the Erueru.
Described as a buffoon.
Now the buffoon is going to be retired from the military. That's how Museveni works. I mean, you go back in history, people who have been close to him, the Katekayas, the Mushega, the VSJ, the Montu, so you don't test your relationship with a lion by putting your finger into its mouth. What the MPs did was to surrender ourselves to Muhoozi Kainerugaba. First of all, what does Muhoozi Kainerugaba think about Parliament? Said, you crowds, you cannot summon me. Who are you to summon me? And he had organized a protest against Parliament until the Supreme Court nullified the law, and now he did the crowds to help him change the law. So the crowds came and actually changed the law, as Muhoozi said, stupid as they were.
Are you saying this of your colleagues?
I mean, you can't pass a law that is going to affect you. You have someone who has become larger than life. The Human Rights Commission writes to him and he says, you should never send me this stupid letter. You woman, we give you life. The MPs, you summon him, he says, you MPs, you are clowns, I will come and arrest you. What crime had the MPs committed to deserve an arrest from Muhoozi Kainerugaba? What crime? And that's the sort of person that you author law and give him to implement. You must be stupid to do that. Someone who has said, just by summoning him to account, because every year we are spending between 4.5 trillion to 6 trillion on defense. People who run that sector must come and account to Parliament. When they called him, he said, "You clowns, I will not come. If I come, I will arrest you." And the clowns now have authored a law, thrown it at him. "Please do what you want, sir. I just pray that one day I get Moses Kainerugaba can arrest one of those clowns." So this law, the immediate target are the opposition. Because Moses now, I think he works as Secretary General of NRM, or as so he's the one who runs NRM also by extension. I was passing by NRM office today until I ran it because of traffic jam. I have seen PLO, a poster there of Moses Kainerugaba at the entrance of NRM with his picture, a serving military officer. Let Dombo deny if it is not in Nakasero. So,
Honorable, is this true?
Absolutely not.
He described the NRM as
Because,
a organization.
Because
A reactionary group.
that was his opinion at that time, because it was through a tweet, which I don't know whether he did it, but also secondly,
Yeah, but you put up his portrait.
there are individuals.
it is there.
There are
You can
individuals.
prove there
That's
after
not
the show
part
here.
of the, that's not part of the secretariat, but there are individuals who associate, voluntary association, who associate with the party, and they come and put their insignia outside of the gate.
So anyone can hang any portrait.
It's not, as long as,
Can you hang Bobby Wine's portrait at NRM Secretariat?
as long as it conforms the objectives of NRM.
Is one of the objectives condoning criminality, because he's having an officer coming out to portray himself as a partisan political actor.
Have you seen that?
Then the commander-in-chief must take.
Honorable Domo, have you seen that portrait?
It is at the entrance.
Have you seen that portrait?
I've seen a number of portraits with individuals. They
No,
come
they
with
asked
them.
me a specific question. Dombo, you are
Have you
intelligent.
seen MK's portrait at the
At the entrance there.
What happens every morning? People come with those portraits and they sit there, and in the evening they
No,
come
this
with
one
them.
is pinned. It is not put there. It is pinned.
I need to look again to see that one.
You see, the law as we have it today, you have an army that you are not sure that is an army anymore. That you come to court, you kidnap people, you beat them, you abandon them. Because even if people have offended you, subject them to the law, take them to police, have them charged. But this army now is dishing out punishment the way they like. The head of the army can celebrate. I had so in my basement. I was punching him every day, and the man appears in court limping. So now the MPs have said, no. What you are committing might be illegal. Now we are giving you a law to do it, at least for you to protect yourself.
Thank you very much.